But let me bring up Sandro's comment. So he said, since you're talking about other languages such as Java, Python, etc., how would we counter the internal argument of ability of
Yeah.
troubleshooting at the plant level? And we have that as I had that listed as a previous, or I guess as the next topic for us to discuss. I labeled it, this is the comment of ladder logic, or
Mm,
let's call it other languages that people don't understand. So I think
yeah.
maybe this is a good segue. But what are your
Mm.
thoughts on the comment?
No, I think it's a great question, and I started. I was in this train or whatever you want to call it, where the language discussion, ladder versus structured text versus everything, and I feel like the whole discussion about which language. I'm going to get to this question, but I just want to point it out that I feel that the whole discussion of which language is taking the focus away from the important things. And when I say the important things is that the language doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What I've learned from the software industry and what there's hundreds and thousands of reports, especially the bigger ones. If you look at the reports like State of DevOps that Google do with tens of thousands of companies, there's a scientific approach of how you make software in a good way. And that's a fundamental property. It doesn't matter which industry it is, whether you do it for an iPhone or whether you do it for a kiosk of some sort or whether you do it for a web page. Fundamentally, the software industry, to develop software, there are practices that are language agnostic, so to speak. It doesn't matter which way you do it. And so I'm going to, for example, for my clients, I work with something called test-driven development, where you write tests up front. And, you know, that's one thing, and that leads to other properties that you generally want from software, that it should be modular, so we can create reusable tested libraries that are automatically tested. There's other properties. I could talk for hours just about this, but you know, the thing is that's really language agnostic, so it doesn't matter which language you use. If you follow these practices, you will get massively better software, and you'll have massively better quality. And that leads me to the thing about, if so I use this test-driven development approach, so I get a bunch of automated tests for my clients. So whenever I develop something, eventually I end up with hundreds and hundreds of tests. Now the tests themselves, they're nice, right? Because I can rerun, I can do regression testing, so I can automatically get just a quick check whether everything is fine. But the more important thing is that the architecture of the software gets massively, it gets much, much better. And this is now going to this question. Yeah, use ladder, use structured text if you want to do it, so the operators can go and look at the code while the machine is running. Fine, but do the other thing. Do the other thing as well. That's the approach I have about it, and that's the approach I take with my clients. I have clients, obviously. I can choose, right? I can't always choose. If I have a client that says, I want to use this PLC thing, I want very high frequency real time control, and I have full, I can do whatever I want. I go with structured text because that's my background. But obviously that's not always the opportunity I have. Sometimes I have a client that says we need ladder, but using ladder doesn't prevent me, in no way doesn't prevent me in writing automated tests. I can still I can still work with tester in development. I can still write all my tests. I can still define this is the expected behavior of the system, and that's going to drive my design of the software. And then the implementation, the actual implementation, I can do rungs and everything, and do that in ladder if they want to go and look into that. If they're going to do changes, do that, rerun the test, and just make sure you haven't broken anything, which is a huge thing which the industry doesn't have today. Vast majority of places that do manual testing, you test it, you do a change, and they test the system manually. No automatic tests. And that's the important thing. If you want to do ladder structure tests, CFCs, whatever, fine. So it's not important. Obviously, it's important if you want to be able to have online login and go in there and do changes, fine. But so absolutely, then use ladder. But I just don't, I really, I'm so, a little maybe not tired of the discussion, but I just feel shit. This discussion about ladder and structure really takes the focus away from the stuff that the software industry has been grinding for 56 years. And I wouldn't even want to say they've been grinding, because if you look at if the really old software, if you look like I read a super interesting article about the Mercury program in the 50s, rockets in the States, and they did test-driven development. Or that's why when you say test-driven development, it's really not something new. It's just rediscovered, more or less.